Hey, Lucy, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Lauren?
Good, good. Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 2.
Episode 2.
A better you is better living, and we got a lot of good stuff today. I think we're going to call this one mind control, right?
Thought
control. Mind control. It sounds a little creepy. We're not trying to
No,
brainwash you or anything.
That's a different podcast.
That's a different podcast.
Different vibe.
Different story for a different time. But yeah, I actually read a crazy book about that once, about like brainwashing,
Really?
and mind control. And maybe one day we'll have to talk about it.
That would be an interesting
But
read.
it's just it was very interesting. But today we're focusing more on our thoughts and thought control, because it's a big part of, just elevating your existence, like
100%.
like we like to talk about here. So
100%.
So thought control, because our thoughts or our mindset leads to behavior, which leads to the results.
Correct.
In whatever you're doing. So it always starts with your thoughts. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We got a lot of good things. We've found some really good articles to discuss as well. So and we have a couple subjects that are kind of on the same topic that we're kind of passionate about, or we kind of have dug into. That something that has really, like, mine has kind of really helped me. Yours, I feel like, it's probably really helped you, and you kind of really thought about that. So I guess, Lucy, why don't you start? Talk to me about your I guess how you control your thoughts, if you will.
Well, so I'll start with, back in college, I had a professor that, and I'm not going to get it right. It's been too long. It's been way too long. But I had a professor in college that talked about how your thoughts truly control and determine your responses, your reactions, your behaviors, and your emotions. And he articulated it really well, how one concept feeds into the next. And so it starts as a thought, and it ripples through every aspect of life and your experiences in life. And so I was thinking about that and doing a little reading online, and stumbled on this article from Soul Salt.
Shout out
soulsalt.com. and it's titled "How to Control Your Thoughts." And the part that really caught my attention was, "and free up your happiness," because I am a believer that learning to control your thoughts is, in fact, liberating. It does free up your agency to live the way that you want to live. So it really caught my attention. And as I got into the article, the question was posed, can you control your thoughts? And so I thought that might be fun, actually, to discuss just briefly how many people have this idea that they do not have the ability to control their thoughts. If we took this to the streets and said, can you control your thoughts? I'd be really curious to know what percentage of people said, no, you can't control your thoughts. Your thoughts are just your thoughts. You can't control your thoughts. So
we should do that.
That would be an incredible
on assignment
experience.
Go and interview people.
It might be scary. I might I would feel the need to help any person who thought that they do not have the ability to control their thoughts. Say, okay, intervention right now. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We may have to.
That could be cool. Could be fun.
It could be really cool. It could be really cool. But it was just an interesting thing to read this article and to revisit some of these concepts on why controlling your thoughts is important, how it affects your life, how it affects your perspective and your experiences. And what I believe we're doing today is dissecting the 2 of the 8 suggested principles or practices that you can put in place to control your thoughts, or why controlling your thoughts is an important aspect of elevating your existence.
Yes. So let's just really run down what the 8 are really quick, and then we can dial into the 2 that really stuck out to us.
I don't know if I have all
Do we
8
have
anymore.
all 8? Oh, I can't.
No, I have the article, but I don't have all of it with me today.
No worries. I remember some of them were like, what was it? Had to do with naysayers. Like, don't believe the
Right.
naysayers. You know,
Don't hang out with the naysayers.
your mindset in general. There was several others that were really
my
good.
apologies.
No,
that was my bad.
No, that's good. It's all good.
I dived into mine so
Yeah.
deeply. I thought there's no way I'm ever actually going to be able to even share all the things that I wanted to share about it. I'll just have to scratch the surface on it. And my hope is that we can actually, through the course of this podcast, talk about all of them.
Yeah,
So,
let's do it. So dive in there.
well, I want to hear yours first.
Okay,
I
all
know
right,
that
all
we
right.
didn't pick the same one as the
Okay.
one that really jumped out at us. So I'm anxious to hear which one
Okay.
you picked.
Okay, so I picked the growth mindset. So to me,
That doesn't surprise me at all.
it's it's huge. It's so
It's
huge.
at the root of everything.
Yes, the growth mindset. So there's actually in the article, it talks about a study, 2006 by Carol Dweck. I hopefully I pronounced that name right. It was at Stanford University. She conducted a study of what makes people succeed, and that's what everybody wants, right? So and you think about that, like, and I did that, and I continue to do that throughout my life. Like, I look at somebody and be like, okay, why are they so successful? And I'm hoping that actually in future podcasts we can get some of those people on this podcast to discuss some of the things, because I've heard stories about extremely successful people, and they're well into their 60s or 70s, and they're still doing these things. They're billionaires, they're triathletes, they're like do all these amazing things, and it all starts with your mindset and your growth mindset. So she basically talks about her findings, it all comes down to mindset. And she talks about there's basically two mindsets. There's your fixed mindset and your growth. Fixed, she defined as the belief that people are born with a fixed amount of intelligence and ability.
Interesting.
So how many people do you think, again, if we took this to the streets, how many people would you think believe that?
It would probably be a staggering high number. But what's interesting about that mindset is you think about how we come into this life and we're learning immediately, right? Within a few months, we're learning to control our facial muscles so that we can smile, and there's an exchange of energy that influences these babies, and they learn how to mimic the things that we're doing. That's how we learn language. That's how we learn to walk. That's how we learn to crawl and to smile and these different things. And so it's an interesting idea that we come in predetermined with a level of intelligence. That doesn't really make any sense to me. And
Right.
I don't know.
So then is that like almost like a societal thing that as we get older, it's like ingrained in us? It's like, nope, sorry, you are only smart enough to be a, whatever. You're only smart enough to, be, the maintenance guy, or you're only smart enough to be a plumber. You're only smart enough to be, or you're smart enough to be the manager. You're smart enough to be a doctor, or anything like that. Do we place those? Does society maybe place those limits on us, and we believe them?
I think to some degree. I think that there's a lot of learning that is rigid, and sometimes the capacity isn't there to help people move forward and advance in a way that is intuitive to them. And so I can see that some of that fixed mindset is ingrained in us as we move through life and experience different things, but our own thoughts begin to shape and affirm those beliefs. So if we struggle somewhere academically in, say, a traditional schooling of some sorts, and we believe that because we can't process math or another subject in a specific way or the way that it's being taught, that is an indication of our ability.
Right.
And I've now reached the cap of my mathematical ability, and I decide that that's truth. I decide that is
That's where the
right here.
thoughts come
I
in,
decide, yes, this is it. This is my limit. I think I know I've experienced that.
Oh, I have too, 100%.
Growing up. So I think there's multiple things at play that shape and create those perceptions, and then we aren't careful with our thoughts and we reaffirm those thoughts, or that pattern of thought, or that perspective that becomes truth. And I think once our minds have decided that this is in fact, or that it's truth, it becomes fact.
Yep.
And we could become very much entrapped by that fixed mindset.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think back about times in my life, and growing up and a kid, and I thought that myself. One specific instance comes out when you're a kid, you're like, well, what do I want to be when I grow up? And you're going through all these stuff. And there was a time period when I was like, I want to be a marine biologist, because I don't know, I liked dolphins and killer whales or something. Like killer whale would be my spirit animal.
Life is so beautiful and simple as a child.
I know, right? And I'm like, oh, I'll be a marine biologist. And then I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, I'm going to be a doctor, but then the thought crept in, I'm not smart enough to be a doctor.
Wow.
And that was my limiting belief, that I was just like, that's a lot of school. I don't think I'm smart enough. And also that I don't want to go to school for that long. But that's, and that was like a limiting belief. And now I feel like, and I've done a lot of schooling since, but now I feel like, yes, I could be a doctor.
I agree.
I just
so you know.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm just like, I can study plenty hard. I've done plenty of school. I feel like I have, the smarts and the capacity to be a doctor, because I switched my mindset, so
you moved from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset.
Yes, I did.
What's interesting though is you transitioned from your fixed to your growth because there were other areas that you succeeded in.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew that it was your grit and your willingness to put in the effort that helped you arrive at accomplishing the other goals that you set out to do in your life. So was that a conscious, can you reflect on moving from that fixed to that, shifting from your fixed mindset to your growth mindset? Is that a conscious thing, or did it just in some respects happen, and then you look back and reflect on the experiences that you've had, and there's proof that you can do hard things, there's proof that you can accomplish the things that you set out to do, even if initially they feel intimidating and bigger than you?
Yeah. So I think what happened is probably a series of events that changed my mindset, kind of like you talked about. So growth mindset, by this definition, is the belief that through hard work and practice, people can build intelligence and capability. And so I would say, yes, I had natural abilities like in the athletic world and things like that, but I still worked very hard. And then I found, okay, I'm working hard through practice. I'm able to get better, to build that intelligence and capability. Also just I went to more school, some of those things, like I did hard things. So I think what it comes down to is I did hard things, and I was able to succeed through that grit, through that perseverance. And then it was probably that light came on, that flip in that mindset, right, and being like, wait a minute, I can do hard things.
Right.
And, I don't have to have that limiting belief. So now I have the crazy mindset where I just look at stuff and I'm like, well, I can do that. Why not me?
Why not Lauren?
And so that's how I attack everything. And I look at, and I've done a lot of crazy things, and I think maybe that mindset started when I was I had desires to do things, and then it turned into the why not me, and then I went for it. So for example, where I grew up, I had jets flying over my house every day, military jets. And I looked at there and I was like, I want to do that as a kid, and of course you wrestle with it again, like I wrestled that with like being a doctor and stuff, but it was more of like, I don't want to die and stuff like that. But then I got older and I was like, I don't care, whatever. But then I looked at that and said, why not me? Like, and that my mindset changed and be like, if they can do it, I can do it. And so then I went on and, I joined the Air Force. I flew jets, bombers to be specific, in the Air Force. Because of that growth mindset, I was just like, I'll just do it. You just got to figure it out. It can't be that hard.
Right.
Yeah, it's a little challenging, and
Right.
you got to work at it, work hard. But
right, it's not a guarantee that because you've adopted a growth mindset that things will come easy.
Right, and that's, you kind of lead me to my next point here, is it's what gets you there with that growth mindset, and I think it's having the attitude of 1% better every day. 1% better every day. Consistency and discipline. And that's what makes things happen. Like when I was, learning to fly and things like that, it was consistency and discipline, studying every single day, learning what I needed to learn. And same thing, like I mentioned in the exercise and sport world, it's working out every day, consistency and discipline. And then you'll see that growth, and then kind of flips that mindset, and you're like, man, I can do hard things. I can do
hard
stuff.
things, and it's worth the effort.
Totally worth the effort.
Right.
Like I did so many crazy things just from trying
Right.
and being consistent and disciplined.
Right. And success begets success. And so I think once you've made that shift and you've committed to that consistency and the discipline, you know that that's what's required and expected of you. You feel energized to go out and do more.
Yeah, totally.
So
Totally. It's like invigorating or
It's-
something, you're like,
it's
woo!
yes,
I
it brings a
can
lot of
do
joy.
this.
Just even reading the definition that she provides for the growth mindset puts a smile on my face. I love
Right.
it.
Right. It's awesome.
All right, I have a question for
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Do you think that there is ever a circumstance where a fixed mindset is good?
Ooh. I don't know.
I don't
What do you-
know.
I don't know if there ever would be. And I would
Not
love.
by this definition.
Yeah.
Not by this definition. It's not a space I would want to live in. I would rather live in a headspace of a growth mindset and try things and then determine after attempting them that they're not for me, or that I'm not as passionate about it as I thought I would be, or that, not that I've settled that I do in fact have limitations, but there have been times when through a growth mindset I've pursued things that then I've decided later on down the line weren't for me.
Yeah, and I totally think that's
And
okay.
that's not
It's part of growing and learning,
that's
right?
growing and learning. That's not failure. That's not me bowing out because I'm limited in my abilities. It's that it turns out it's not something that I feel passionate enough about to dedicate that consistency and that discipline.
Right. And we only have a finite amount of time, so
Correct. Right.
find those things that you really want to do. And I like to say, back to learning and growing. Like you did it because you had that growth mindset, and then you realized, okay, I want to pivot, maybe use my time wisely elsewhere
in other areas.
and not do that. And I mean, like, yeah, like I think back of like, I took a lot of calculus and stuff in high school because people were like, you need to take calculus if you want to fly jets in the Air Force. That's not true, by the way. And so I took all this calculus, and it was terrible. But I pushed through it.
Right.
But I'm not going to go be a calculus teacher. Like that's not fun to me.
Right.
And so I'm going to move on to something else and realize I'm going to grow better
in other ways. Right. You can use that growth mindset to get through some of the requirements of life, right? Because not every aspect of the thing that you're pursuing is going to be pleasant or enjoyable. But you need that growth mindset to help drive that consistency and that discipline, because you know that this is just one aspect of the work that needs to be done in order for me to get where I want to go.
Right.
And
Right.
so I think the growth mindset is an invigorating way to experience life.
Yep. Yep. And it says here in the article, it says, so if you want to succeed, shift to a growth mindset so you can start something new and with practice become better and better at it over time. And so it's just, if you want to succeed, it's that first thing in whatever, have that growth mindset. And it doesn't have to be all or none. Like I believe it's talked about in this article, like all or none stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Did you practice that segue?
Segue. No, but it doesn't have to be all or none. 1% better every time. So
I love it.
Yeah. 1% better every day, consistency and discipline. And at the end of the show, I have an action for everybody.
Okay.
That can help them with growth mindset.
Do you want to share now?
Do I? Okay, I'll share now. So,
twisted your arm.
Yeah. So the action, because we're action people here, and you mentioned some of the keywords. It might not be the most fun at the time or whatever, or you get, you have setbacks and things like that. But here's an action that you can take that can help growth mindset, and it's not what you think. Growth mindset in the capacity of consistency and discipline. So here it is. Take a cold shower every day. And people say, why? And there are actual
Explain.
Physiological. So here we go. So there's actually a lot of physiological advantages to taking a cold shower, doing cold plunging. You see that a lot.
I have seen it. It's
on
not
the social
intrigued
media.
me, so I'm very excited.
I love it. I
Okay.
love it. So some of the physiological aspects, you have like decreases inflammation in your body, helps detox your body, different things like that. Increases longevity, all these things. But a lot of those are physical.
Okay.
So I want to talk about the, I guess, discipline, consistency, thought, or mental part of it, which would be the discipline. It makes you disciplined. You get in that cold shower every single morning, whether you want to or not.
How many seconds are we talking?
I mean, you could, a few minutes.
Minutes? Okay.
So, and I know some people are like, what? No, I got to have my hot shower. So here's a trick.
All right.
Start out hot shower.
Okay.
Because I know you women out there, you got to shave and whatever and all your routine. That's fine. And you don't want goosebumps. But, so jump in the hot shower at first, and then and when you're done, crank it to full cold and stand in there for at least 30 seconds to begin with. Okay. And that starts that discipline process. It's doing something that might not be the most comfortable, but it's beneficial to you. So again, growth mindset. And with growth mindset, everything's not like lollipops and rainbows all the time in growth mindset. Growing is difficult.
It's painful.
I always say get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right?
Right.
So
there's no progress in
grow.
comfortable.
Yeah, you're not going to sit in comfortable and grow. So it is a challenging thing. So yes, it is challenging to crank that cold water and stand for 30 seconds.
Okay.
And then over time you get to like, now I'm standing there for a minute. Now I'm standing there for 2 minutes. You know what? I'm gonna go straight cold from the beginning. And it's that discipline and consistency, and you realize I can do this. It's one of those things that we talked about. It's like you start doing something and you realize that it flips that switch and you're like, I'm disciplined. I'm consistent. I have a growth mindset.
Are we gonna put a timestamp on this? Are we gonna say, do this for a month, do this for a week?
I'd say do it for a month and then see how you feel. See how you feel physically and mentally. Physically, you'll feel better just because you're, like I said, you're decreasing inflammation in your body and all those things. And then mentally, you'll just have this new spark like, I took cold showers for 30 days straight. Like, bring on Mount Everest. I'm ready to go.
I'm gonna be really honest. I am struggling to say action accepted.
Come on. This is what we do here.
This is what we do.
But yeah, I would challenge everybody to try it out. Cold
Today
showers,
is
30 days.
November 2nd.
Yep.
So.
Dia de los Muertos is today.
Is it?
It is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Officially.
I'm going to go home and watch Coco tonight.
Oh, love that movie. All right, so 1 month.
Okay.
I will do it for 1 month, 30 seconds. I'll see
Start
if
with
I can.
go hot shower,
yeah.
then to 30, then to a minute, then 2 minutes, and then see if you can get to just full cold showers.
Okay. I will
That's
let
awesome.
you know how I do, and I will, once a week, I'll just note in my journal how I feel.
Yeah. And I think it's great for
The first entry will
discipline.
say cold.
Yes. Probably repeatedly for the first like 15.
Cold.
Maybe even at the
But-
end.
Yeah.
Cold, but I feel pretty
Cold,
good.
but better.
It's so invigorating. Like I continued it when we did a little family vacation up to Yellowstone and Jackson Hole, and we stayed in Coulter Bay Campground right there on Jackson Lake, and I would get up every morning and I would just go jump in the lake.
Wow.
And there was people sitting there because it was cooler. It was like June, July time frame, but it was cooler. There was people sitting on the beach, and they're like pulling on jackets and stuff, and here I am like bebopping out of the cold water in my swimsuit. And one guy was like, "Oh yeah, how's that? Nice and cold." And I'm like, refreshing. And it really was. It's just, I don't know, but I've been doing it for a while, so I'm all about it. But cold showers every day creates discipline, and it's in the smallest sense, in that growth mindset that you can do anything.
Hard things that are truly uncomfortable.
Yes.
Okay, I get it.
Yep. So there you have it. There's my action.
There's your action.
All right, Lucy. So I am dying to hear your thoughts on one of the topics in this article. We kind of alluded to it a minute ago.
We did.
But
yes.
What do you got?
So out of the 8, the one that jumped off the page at me was nix the all or nothing view.
All right.
So this all or nothing language has been very prevalent in my life. It's been something that I've noticed my husband and my boys are very prone to. And so I have some sensitivity to it. So I couldn't wait to dive into it and to learn a little bit more about it. But I wanted to just share a small backstory. I was in my late 20s, actually early 30s. I was in my early 30s. I was in a training at my job, and there was a process that we followed when we had escalated issues. We had a research team, and there was a process that we had to follow when something came in that was beyond the scope of my own work. We handed it off to this second tier of level of support. And I was in a training, and we were talking about this process, and I raised my hand and I said to the trainer, "Why do we do it this way? It never works, or we never get," I don't remember exactly what I said, but I used this language, this all or nothing language, right? We have this process, it never works. Why do we even have it? It never works. And she responded to me with, "Well, I doubt that it never works. Otherwise we wouldn't have the process." And so she just really put me in my place, because, it's like, well, yeah, what company is going to have a process that they know doesn't work, but they're going to keep it in place, and we're going to continue to run this practice over and over and over and over and over and over again, but yet it never works. And so that was the very first time. That was a very, what does Oprah call those? An aha moment for me. I had just started to mentally grow in ways where I was even reflecting on these things that we're wanting to talk about all day long. It was all new for me, but that stuck with me. And I began noticing that pattern of this all or nothing language in so many aspects of my life. And I'm never selected for the team. I never win, any of the games. My name never gets drawn from, the drawings at work.
Yeah, for prizes, yeah.
Right? I never win prizes. I never this, I never do that. It's always this way. He never listens to me. She never listens to me. And it's a very dangerous, narrow mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And when I really began to pay attention to it and challenge it So I would challenge it when I would find myself using language like that, or if I was in conversation with other people and they were using language like that, and I began challenging it. It was unbelievable to me how much my eyes would just be open immediately. So she talks a little bit about, here's some examples. I often come across people who have the all or nothing view of life. They say things like, I'm not successful, or I'm either successful or worthless. I'm either smart or stupid. Something is either right or wrong. And she talks about how it's a polarized way of thinking, and it makes it really difficult for you to move forward. So you have to work on changing that inner script. So when I started reflecting on it in my own life, what I noticed was that it immediately discounts any of the opportunities, any of the experiences that I've had where the opposite is true, right? If I say my name never gets drawn for prizes at the Christmas party, well, that discredits and discounts all the times that my name was in fact drawn. Even if it was only once or twice, it did in fact happen. But this all or nothing mindset negates the moments that it did. I can't do math. I've never been able to do math. Well, that negates every time I've been at Nordstrom and have been able to quickly calculate my discount.
That's right.
And so it negates all of the experiences that you have in your life that where the opposite holds true. And it builds resentment, it builds frustration, it is a paralyzing frame of thought, because if something never will happen to you, then why would I bother to do anything at all?
Right.
If I need to have a conversation with my spouse about something, but he never listens to me, and that's my thinking, why would I ever initiate a conversation with him?
Yep.
And we could pick that apart, because then you actually do in fact have a conversation with him in your mind, and he never wins, he's never the hero, he never says anything right, he didn't listen to you, and then you walk around with these reactive emotions to a conversation that you've actually never had
in your own brain,
in
and then
your own
it creates
it's just
more
this
thoughts,
vicious cycle,
behaviors,
100%.
all those things and it just makes it worse.
It just makes everything worse. And so that all or nothing mindset is a trap. I think it can bring despair, it brings anxiety, I think it perpetuates depression, I think it discredits positive experiences with yourself in your own life, positive interactions with other human beings. I think it's isolating. You harbor feelings and responses and a mindset that just really force you to cocoon within yourself and isolate yourself in so many ways. And so it's something that I've really tried to work on for myself. It's really something I've tried to gently correct when I hear my children using that kind of language, when I hear my husband using that kind of language. If I'm having a conversation with him that's difficult and I'm using that kind of language, maybe to validate or justify my own feelings, I'm careful with it. And so instead of saying you never listen or I'm never heard, it's acceptable to say I sometimes feel like I'm not heard. It's acceptable to even swap it with the word often. I often am overlooked. I'm often not the winner or the one selected at the company Christmas party for prizes. But even that slight shift to often or occasionally or sometimes or at times, or there are moments.
Right, like I feel like I'm not being heard right now,
in this
or something
moment,
like that would.
Any of that, it's a subtle shift, but all of a sudden it opens up the possibility that there could be an alternate truth or an alternate reality to what you believe. And the other thing that she mentions is that it's also tied to perfectionism. And so I thought about this again in reference to conversations I've had with my husband. If I say, you're never this or this, never always, let's say, right, whatever the context is of that kind of language, when I'm communicating with him in a way where his behaviors are all or nothing, I think it shuts him down. I've witnessed this. It shuts him down. If he's using language like that to me, it shuts me down. And it plants the idea that the only other option is to be perfect in this space.
Mm-hmm.
So if you never listen to me, the only way to appease me, to be a good husband, to show up for me in the way that I want, is to perfectly listen to me.
We know that's not going to happen.
And that's not going to happen. There's no space for humanness.
Right.
There's no space for error. There's no space for growth mindset. There's no space for an opportunity to learn and to be a little bit better incrementally. It's all or nothing. So if you can't show up and do it perfectly, just don't show up or do it at all.
Yeah, I think that right there is like a toxic,
so toxic
statement. And relationship, you're tying it to, relationships with your family. And I feel like, that happens in a lot of relationships, and almost all relationships in family or friends or anything, as we go into that kind of toxic language.
Right.
And then it either makes the other one shut down, like you mentioned, or feel bad or whatever,
right.
or you yourself shut down, feeling like I'm never going to be able to live up to the expectations of,
right.
My wife, or even with kids, like my parents, or whatever, or even as grown adults, like our own parents.
Right.
Like, we're never going to be able to live up to these expectations.
Right.
And so then we need to change that view.
Right. And it's easy to apply that all or nothing language to conversations and to relationships, because I think we're so casual about it, we don't recognize that we're doing it. But it's applicable when we're tackling a project at work, or we're undertaking something that's requiring us to stretch ourselves. And if we're not careful, if we're walking around with that all or nothing ideology, right, that's everything that we're doing, we're applying that all or nothing pattern of thought to it. Well, if you can't do it perfectly, whatever it is, then don't do it at all.
Yep.
So it's not just in relationships, it's applicable in every aspect of our life. For me, it was just where I noticed it showing up
right.
aggressively, and I knew it was a space that I needed to correct, and not just for my own peace of mind, but for the peace of and harmony that needs to exist in relationships. And just to give not just myself, but those that I love and care for, the space to be human, to grow, and to not be tied to this idea that if they can't show up for me perfectly, if I can't show up for them perfectly, then we're just going to quit.
Right. That's kind of why I said earlier, like 1% better every day.
1% better.
It's not 100% better every day, because
right.
you're setting yourself up for failure.
That is the all or nothing mentality.
The all or nothing mentality.
Right.
I experienced, you mentioned relationships, but then it leaks into other
yep.
all aspects of our lives. And I've seen it in business. When I was in the military, flying bombers, we dealt with nuclear weapons, and that's a pretty big deal. You can't really mess up there.
Right.
But they really ground in that perfectionism, that all or nothing, and it was a very toxic place to be at. And it was because if you screw up just this much,
right.
like complete failure, and so I can see it, and it destroys morale or anything. You can't operate a business like that. You can't operate relationships like that.
Nope.
Like none of that. Community groups, whatever, families, you just can't.
Right.
It's just it's too toxic. We're all human. Right. There will be mistakes.
There's really no opportunity to actually succeed.
No, you're setting yourself up for failure. Yeah, 100% of the time.
So your options when you walk around with that all or nothing view are to to just accept that you've already decided whether you succeed or not. It is in fact a failure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've already predisposed your mind to that's what it is, or to do nothing. So it's
Success or failure.
Right. So it's, I don't know, it's still something that I pay attention to it, and I still at times catch myself using that kind of language, but I've gotten significantly better. And man, the grace and the compassion and the charity that can exist in everything.
Yeah.
By just allowing that's the space, by avoiding this all or nothing and operating in a space of neutrality,
Mm-hmm.
it's pleasant.
Yeah.
That's the word I'll use. It's pleasant. It's encouraging, and it's just brought a lot of contentment and peace within myself. And I would much rather move through life in that space, in that frame of mind, than this anxiety driven, if I can't do it perfectly, I just can't do it at all.
And we just need to remember that we're humans, and that going through life is not, it's not like a straight line upwards, like you're just cruising right to the finish. It's like ups and downs. That's why it's the 1% better. It's going to be like kind of like a roller coaster ride, but you're always hoping that you're trending in that right direction. I feel like that's what the 1% better is.
Right.
Is you might dip somewhere else, but you climbed somewhere else, and you're just trending in that positive direction, always hoping to be just 1% better. And then, like you say, you're in that space of grace, and
yes,
it's pleasant,
right,
and in charity, and then we can all just kind of grow together.
Right.
So I got a question,
yes,
real quick. Do you think this is very prevalent in Utah?
Oh,
did I just open up a can of worms here?
That is 2-hour podcast, and I don't even know if we would.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. That's a touchy one. Maybe we'll crack it one day.
I will just say, do I think it's a problem more prevalent in Utah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay.
For right now, because there's not enough time.
Right.
What I would like to say is that I am just jolly, as corny as that sounds. I love how we picked two different things, but they feed together so beautifully, right? You talk about this growth mindset. That's not going to happen if you're walking around with this all or nothing view.
Right.
So I love how we selected two different things, but they're so deeply related. And obviously all 8 principles are going to feed and build on each other.
Yeah.
But I just think that these two in particular are tied in it's deeply, because if you want to move from that fixed mindset, which is your all or nothing view,
yep,
you got to let that go to be able to transition into that growth mindset
and start growing.
Yes.
Yep. So,
I've got an action.
Okay, I was just going to ask, so what's your action? How are we going to do this?
My action is significantly easier than yours.
Okay.
So to all of our listeners, you have no excuse. Speaking of an all or nothing mindset.
You better do this or else.
So I would just simply invite people to watch and to catch themselves using words such as always, never. Always or never. If you can eliminate those two, I think that you will be surprised at how much that opens you up to recognizing other areas where you have that all or nothing view. But if you can just work on swapping out those two words and change it, right? If we take something away, we need to fill it with something else. So if I'm gonna walk around and do my best to eliminate saying I never this or I never that, what would be an appropriate word to swap out for never?
Never.
I mean, it could be something simple like sometimes.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel this. I sometimes think this. I sometimes do this. That's a simple one. I sometimes, right? Sometimes. Or, and for always, I like at times or occasionally. And so just swap always and never. Eliminate always and never from your internal dialogue with those you engage, and work on swapping them for something that's just a little more passive and leaves room for an alternate.
Yes, I like it. So swap out your always and never for something like often or sometimes.
Yes.
For 30 days.
Okay.
And see how you feel, along with taking cold showers.
Okay.
For 30 days.
30 days.
Your life's going to change. It's going to be amazing.
These two small, simple things.
Well, and it's two small, simple things, and it's just going to take you from, it's just going to open your mind.
It's going to
take you from a fixed to a growth mindset. Just by changing some of your language, because then that makes you, because what comes out of your mouth, you've already thought before, right?
Correct.
That's kind of your thoughts then lead to your behaviors, which is speech and action and then results. So we're just changing a little thought process for you for all or nothing, and then jump in that cold shower.
And then you're ready for your growth mindset.
And you are growing.
You step out of the shower, no more always, no more never, and the world is open to you.
Yep, growth mindset. So there you have it.
Growth mindset. Go out and tackle the world, change your life, elevate your existence.
There you go. All right, we'll see you next time.
Next time.